Drivers, start your engines. You are now listening to the fastest show on iSports Radio. My name is Darrell Kinsey Jr. I'm welcoming you to another lap of the extra mile for today, September 24th, 2020. And ladies and gentlemen, beyond our wildest expectations, despite everything going on with the Rona, somehow we have made it into the championship rounds of NASCAR and IndyCar and made it into the second half of the season for Formula One. The 24 Hours of Le Mans has finally run one of my favorite races of the entire season, outside of course, the big three that we talk about here. And I'm just so thankful that we got to see those races, and I'm thankful to get to talk about it here with two very special people. First, the one that you already know, my good friend of mine who also lives here in Maryland, Mr. Michael Ward. Michael, say hello.
Hello. Except I don't live in Maryland anymore, Daryl.
Right,
I live in Virginia now.
Yeah, he now lives in Virginia, so on two different sides of the DMV. He's on the side of the DMV where nobody knows how to drive, but that's a story for another day. But we have a brand new voice that I would like to welcome in here on the show for the Extra Mile. A brand new co-host joining us this evening, Mr. Christopher Lehman. Christopher, welcome to the program, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to talking racing with you guys.
So that is our new co-host, and we're going to have a quick little segment here. We're just going to interview him for a little bit and find out a little bit about himself. So Christopher, or about him, excuse me. So Christopher, where do you hail from, and how did you get started into your motorsports fandom?
So I am located in upstate New York. I live roughly 40 minutes from Watkins Glen, and naturally that is where I got my start. Ever since I was a kid, my family took me there. We'd always go camping and catch all the races. And so I was born into racing, and it all started with Watkins Glen, which in my opinion is the best track on earth.
Watkins Glen is one of the best road courses in America, second only to Road Atlanta for me. I just love Road Atlanta so much, but that's a great track that you get. That was your first track, because I've always wanted to go to Watkins Glen.
Well, you're welcome to come up with us anytime.
Well, I'll definitely have to make it up there. So you said you're a big NASCAR fan, so who do you have a rooting interest for in the Cup Series?
So I was always a Dale Jr. guy. And so when he retired, I let Alex Bowman pick up that torch for me. And so kind of everybody in Hendrick, really. But my biggest focuses are Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott, and Ryan Blaney.
That's actually interesting, because I kind of did the same thing.
Glad to meet another Blaney fan.
I know, right?
What's that?
Michael, say it again.
Blaney is very. I said I'm glad to meet another Blaney fan. I feel like Blaney is very slept on in NASCAR.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that, actually.
So Larry B said Auto Club is the greatest saying, but Watkins Glen is legit. And then he was making.
Yeah, I know Larry likes going to Auto Club, so fair enough. I'll give him that one.
It's actually where our new header picture is from for the show title. If you're looking at it on Spreaker, that's actually from Auto Club. I'm pretty sure that's from when Larry went, but he'll tell us here in a little bit. Terrin is also joining us in the chat. Hey, buddy, I hope you're doing well. He's got a couple of shows and does a lot behind the scenes to make sure everything's going right here on the Extra Mile. Or Extra Mile on every other show. Davidson Crooks just jumped into the chat room as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started, fellas, on our topics for tonight. And, of course, we're going to start. Originally, I was going to start with Bristol. But I think we would be remiss if we didn't start with the news that broke earlier this week that absolutely set the NASCAR world on fire, and that is the fact that, yes, Denny Hamlin is starting a NASCAR Cup Series team. Michael Jordan is coming with him, and they've picked Bubba Wallace as the driver. The announcement came late Monday evening as everyone was trying to figure out where Bubba Wallace was going to end up in 2021. There was rumors that he was going to go to the Gaunt brothers at one point, which made no sense whatsoever. This is the culmination of a rumor mill that has been brewing since June that Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan were getting together to make this move, and eventually they were going to move in with RPM and make that a Toyota team. A good friend of mine, Joey, actually broke a story from a source that he had about that. A lot of people laughed it off. That story turns out to be mostly true. He doesn't end up at RPM. He ends up starting his own team. But, fellas, I had this thought, and I'll let Christopher go first since he's the new guy after I finish this. If NASCAR is trying to target a more diverse audience going forward, and they know they are, in my opinion, this is the way to do it with Michael Jordan, one of the most important figures in the African-American community, jumping into a sport he has loved all of his life, and to have him start a team, pick up the only African-American driver really in all three touring series that has been making a lot of headway in the area of civil rights and activism. It feels like one huge step in the right direction. I want to get Christopher's take on it as well. So, Christopher, what did you think when you first heard this news?
I was as excited as anybody else. We had obviously heard a lot over the summer about Denny Hamlin trying to take up some ownership in a team. And with Jermaine announcing that they were closing, even before anything broke, I was kind of thinking to myself, if Denny Hamlin's got some money behind him, that's a real possibility. And like we were kind of talking about in the pre-show, the day that the news broke, NASCAR on NBC put out that graphic with free agents and teams who were looking for drivers. And Denny Hamlin Racing was right there on that graphic. And you're talking 3-4 hours before the news officially broke. Mm-hmm. So right there, I kind of knew that shot was coming. And when it did, I was smiling as much as anybody. And kind of like you said, it's a very socially progressive sport. That's kind of where we're heading. And I love this move for Bubba. I love it for Denny, Michael Jordan, NASCAR. I think everybody wins here, including the fans and the new fans that are going to be coming in.
Michael, let's get you involved for the first time tonight. When Michael Jordan made his statement about coming into the team, one of the things that was mentioned in the middle paragraph was the diversity and the activism that NASCAR has gone forward. I really believe in the bottom of my heart, if NASCAR does not make the move to ban the Confederate flag back in June, this does not happen. It really feels like, NASCAR, we know, took a big risk in June when it stepped out there behind Bubba in support of his diversity initiatives. And right now, it looks like a huge positive. You got a lot more sponsors coming in for Bubba as they're starting to recognize this, this sports game more progressive. They start jumping on with Bubba. All of a sudden, Michael Jordan comes in. It really feels like NASCAR's made the right decision here.
Yeah, it really feels like they did, Daryl. And there have been so many sponsors that I never thought would actually be put on a NASCAR. You got TikTok, Daryl.
Yep, Ryan Vargas just signed with TikTok today. It's wild, the sponsors that are coming in.
TikTok on a NASCAR.
Yeah, and you have DoorDash and Cash App as well on Bubba Wallace. And Christopher actually shared that with us in the Twitter earlier this afternoon. It's starting to come out looking positive for NASCAR right now, and on the sponsor front, on the attention front. Lord knows we've needed this for the last couple of years when it comes to this sport. But now it comes into reasonable expectations for this team. We know how both of us, or all three of us, know how this sport is when it comes to one-car teams as of right now with this current car. It hasn't been kind to them. I imagine things are going to be different with the next-gen car that is supposed to be much cheaper. There's going to be changes to the schedule to shorten the amount of time they're going to be out going crisscross around the country, which is going to be more cost savings. This sport is going to become more affordable, which should help, and it will also help that this team has near unlimited funds coming in, and the fact that Michael Jordan makes 9 figures at least on shoes a year, despite never playing basketball or haven't played basketball in a decade or so, not to mention all the sponsors that have come in with Bubba. So we know there's going to be a lot of financial backing with the team. But my question to both of you, and we'll start with Christopher again, what are reasonable expectations for this team in the first couple of years?
So for me, I think it's going to come down to how strong of a technical alliance they have with JGR off the get-go. I think that if JGR is essentially selling them cars ready to go, I think they're going to have not only the money, but they're going to have the star power to go out and grab some top-notch people to make it happen on the track. And so for me, your early results are going to come down to just how tied in with JGR and that technical alliance they're going to be. We know that they've got tons of money coming in through sponsorship. You know, Toyota's going to be doing stuff for them too, with so much star power in Michael Jordan coming in and with Bubba. So I think this team's got all the money in the world, and it's just going to come down to who they can get to make those track day decisions and adjustments. That's where they're going to find all their success.
What's up, Davidson? What's up, Marcus? Looks great. Thank you all for joining us in the chat room. Davidson says hopefully they end up signing another driver by 2022. Daniel Hemrick was a name that was rumored to be joining that team. It doesn't look like that's going to be happening for 2021, but that could be a possibility for 2022. We'll see what happens there. Michael, what do you think? What are your reasonable expectations for the team going forward?
Like Christopher said, I think that Joe Gibbs is going to be with them on a technical side. Honestly, Daryl, I feel like this is going to be maybe not as bad, but I kind of see this as another 78 car.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about this 78 car is that it's not going to be a single car operation. I do see them becoming more and more prominent. I do see them becoming more and more consistent because Wallace, he's a great driver. All right, that a lot of I see on Facebook sometimes a lot of people say he's not good. I think he's really good to pull that RPM Chevy up to where it doesn't really belong. But I think he's good, and I think he's got a chance. I think, top 15, top 10s are what's going to be happening this maybe even a win, maybe. But I feel like they're going to perform well.
I don't see a win unless it's a restrictor plate track, which Bubba is really good at.
Yeah. But maybe like the next year, Daryl, I feel like if they do get a second car, if they do get that more technical support from GGR, I honestly think this is another Stewart-Haas.
I think it will.
Stewart-Haas. This is the foundation of another Stewart-Haas.
Yeah, I think that they're going to have a much better relationship with JGR, given the fact that Denny Hamlin is minority owner in the team. So I don't see the cost issues that hurt Furniture Row being an issue here with this new Michael Jordan team. Not just because Michael Jordan's freaking loaded. They're not gonna send their own driver up the river when it comes to prices. That he's probably gonna get a hometown discount, literally working at the place that is also supplying his race cars, which is a weird sentence to say. I don't think we've dealt with this since Dale Earnhardt Sr. when he was running at RCR while DEI was getting together. And it's interesting. I always wonder how that would have went eventually. Unfortunately, we didn't get to find out. But this is going to be a team that everyone needs to watch because there's a lot of interested parties in them being successful, and I think they're going to do the work to make it successful. We just have to see how everything's going to wrap out with the new car and everything like that, and continuing Bubba Wallace's development. So with that being said, we'll go from Bubba Wallace to Bristol and the end of round one of the playoffs. That came at Bristol in the Bass Pro Shops night race, a race that was won by Kevin Harvick, win number 9 on the season for Harvick. And Harvick, he is aging like fine wine, everyone, when it comes to his career. He is dominating this field. It has gone from a Hamlin-Harvick neck and neck to who can stop Harvick when it comes to getting to Phoenix at the end of the season to fight for the championship. But that was also the wrap-up for round one of the playoffs, obviously, and we said goodbye to 4 drivers. And we're going to start with Matt DiBenedetto and Ryan Blaney. Bristol was talked about for both of them as a really good track, and they were going to need really good runs. Unfortunately, DiBenedetto finished 19th, several laps down. Blaney finished 13th, also laps down, as that race had a classic feel to it, which we'll get to it in a little bit. DiBenedetto and Blaney both struggled and were really non-factors when it came to the final stage. And Christopher, as we were talking at the beginning of or before we came on the air, you think that may have played into a little bit in how that final stage went. So why don't you tell everyone about that? I think we may have lost Christopher. Chris, you there? All right, we'll come back to Christopher. Michael, do we have you?
I'm all here.
Okay. So Michael, we'll go with you. What did you think of of Blaney and DiBenedetto's performances?
I mean, I feel like they perform decently. Bristol's a crazy track, and sometimes things happen, and sometimes, it's hard to navigate the track. Sometimes it's one of those tracks where you have to not only race the track, but the traffic. And also, it is a short track, and there's a lot of people bumping and banging, and people also know what to stick with their with the playoffs and everything. So it's definitely a lot of competition for them to deal with, and sometimes they just can't handle it. I really felt bad for Blaney and DiBenedetto because DiBenedetto, like we remember last year, he had that great performance last year, but just couldn't reciprocate it today. So I really hope they can get it back together next year, but it might be tough for them, especially with, drivers who are going to be much, much stronger next year.
I think we got Christopher back. Christopher, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you back. So we'll come back to... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so like I was saying in the pre-show, coming out of the second stage into the final stage, you had 9 drivers already locked in on points. And as we all knew coming into this race, you got pretty much everybody in that bottom 4 is in a must-win situation, just being realistic. And when you got the top 9 who are already locked in on points, and then you've got the bottom 4 who are in a must-win, there's no real incentive for really hard racing when half of your bottom 4 are multiple laps down. William Byron's out. It was almost a little disappointing to me the race. I was expecting a little more bumping and beating. I mean, it was an entertaining race, start to finish, but I just expected a little more hard racing, short track night racing.
I think we all did, and what I said before we came on air was it was a situation of the guys up front were all locked in and didn't really have to push that hard, while the guys that needed to push hard had off nights and couldn't. And it just turned into a third stage where it had a classic feel to it, to like one of those races that throw back to the 80s, where you get this long green flag run and the leader's just blazing his way through and putting cars a lap down, to the point where at one point we had 9 cars on the lead lap before that late caution came out for Quinn Houff. And it looked like we were actually going to see a full round of green flag pit stops as guys. It really wasn't planned. It was more of, I can't deal with these tires anymore. I have to get new tires. Everybody just pulling off the racetrack, and then of course the incident happened as Harvick was coming to pit lane. But it was a situation where it had a more classic feel to it, and that's always has its pros and cons. As for example, I'll take you to the video game world here for a minute. I've been playing back through GTA San Andreas, and yes, I've got some good memories of that game from when I was a kid, but there's also some frustrating mechanics that remind you of that time in video gaming. The same can be said about this Bristol race, where the people that talk about how they like the 80s style of racing, there were you saw some of that on Saturday night, and you see some of the negatives to it, where you had so many cars a lap down to where it made the end of the race really, I can't really say it was anticlimactic. So watching Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick battle for the last 60 laps was entertaining, but it took a lot of the wind out of the final stages of that race, where everyone was pretty much set in stone when it came to the playoffs, or when it came to their playoff standings. Some people on the good side of that, and other people on the obviously negative side of that.
Yeah, well, just speaking of that Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick showdown, I think Joey Logano got a lot of crap on Twitter that wasn't justified for me. I didn't see what Joey Logano was supposed to do when you got Harvick and Kyle Busch who are running separate lines on a 2-line track. You know, what's a guy to do? So I think Joey Logano did the right thing, holding his line. And
yeah, I also Christopher popped up, but I also don't understand why he was getting such a bad rap, why Joey was getting such a bad rap. I was confused because I didn't see anything wrong with what he did, mainly because we already know how racing is like in Bristol. If you are a slower car, you just cannot get out the way because the entire track is the racing groove. So the best thing for Joey to do there is to hold his line and let the leaders work their way around him. Harvick did. Busch had a little bit of trouble, and unfortunately that led to Harvick getting the win. Now, did Joey Logano make it a little bit tougher on Kyle to get through? We will never know. But for now, we are on our way to the second round of the playoffs, and we will talk about that in depth later on in the program. I do want to hit a couple of news topics before we go into our break. This one came down recently today. Hendrick Motorsports was hit with a $100,000 penalty for self-reporting wind tunnel violations. They went over the 70-hour limit that was instituted by NASCAR. They will lose 10 hours of wind tunnel testing next season, and Ross Chastain will be entering the Cup Series full-time in 2021, finally getting to drive the 42 of Chip Ganassi Racing. Michael, what are your thoughts on Chastain moving up to the 42?
Honestly, just finally. He's been trying to get in the Cup for a long time now. and it's just great to see that he's finally made it. And hopefully he does well in the Cup Series, although I don't expect him to start winning right away because it is the Cup Series. So, I honestly don't see him winning right away. There's too many Kyle Bushes, Kevin Harvicks, Chase Elliott's for him to just win right away. But I do think I am glad that he finally has an opportunity to make a name for himself in the Cup Series and with Chip Ganassi equipment too. So, just good luck to him, honestly.
Christopher, do we have you? Doesn't look like we have Christopher, so we'll get back with him in a little bit. But we're going to take our first break of the program. When we come back, we're going to get into the 24 Hours of Le Mans. We're going to tell you about what happened, and we're going to explain why Toyota's dominance really isn't their fault. I'll explain on the other side of this break here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey guys, it's Blake Henley, better known as H-Town Blake to some of you. Happy to announce that Bases Loaded is back in full force. We'll be bringing that high heat every Tuesday night here on IE Sports Radio. So come home, get ready, dig into that batter's box, and see if you can chase that high heat, baby. So we'll be coming to you live with all the stats, all the rundowns, all the division rivalries, and every team that's going to make the playoff push to get to that one and only October and get to the pinnacle of what baseball is, to hoist that Commissioner's Trophy when it's all said and done.
Hey, what's up, sports fans? You're looking for a different type of sports talk show, something you haven't heard before? You gotta check out the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday on 2 Live Stews Radio, 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. Sports talk at its finest. Always have great guests, playing some good hip-hop. You don't want to miss it. Make sure to tune in to the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
So we're back here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Before we get into Le Mans, we're going to go ahead and address the question that Turin asked in the chat. He asked if any other big-name sports legends could follow MJ's footsteps and be a part of NASCAR. My answer to that question is I don't know, due to the fact that, and Michael actually brought up a good point, the last time this happened, it didn't really go that well because we had Hall of Fame racing started by Troy Aikman, and they didn't really stay around that long. And then Michael reminded me of something. The Money race team still exists. If you don't know what that is, I wouldn't blame you. if you harken back to the dying days of the 2019 season, there was a rumor. Actually, it wasn't even a rumor. It was pretty much confirmed that Floyd Money Mayweather was starting a NASCAR team and was going to be making their start at the Daytona 500 this season. That all disappeared, and we haven't heard anything about it since. So, who knows what's going on when it comes to whether or not we'll see any other legendary athletes coming in. But my also question to you guys is, do you think we're ever going to see this Floyd Mayweather team, or is that just a story just to keep us on our toes? Because I am very confused by why we've heard very little from that outfit in starting.
I want to say maybe they just ran into some, not financial difficulties, but just legal stuff. You know, maybe it's something they wanted to do, and then the boards of NASCAR were just like, oh, no, you can't do that. And, yeah. Legal, behind the scenes, hush-hush type stuff.
Christopher, what do you think? Do you think we're ever going to see the money team going toe-to-toe with Michael Jordan's team?
I don't think so at this point. We just haven't heard anything about it. And if we were going to, you'd be hearing some rumors. There's a lot of people involved with running a team, and we just haven't heard anything about even them contacting people. No engineers, no crew chiefs, no drivers. I mean, we haven't heard anything. And I think if we were serious about this money team, we would have heard something by now.
I also believe that. There was a rumor that they may be trying to buy the 13 charter, and it may be a situation of they learned about the thing that charters exist, so they probably are trying to find one, and right now can't. So who knows when it comes to that? But that really jogged my memory, because I'm like, oh right, that was supposed to be a thing, but who knows at this point. We will now shift gears to the twice-around-the-clock classic that is the 24 Hours of Le Mans. That race originally scheduled for June happened in September. This is Michael and I's probably our favorite endurance race of the season outside of Daytona. I love this race so much. It is an incredible testament to technology, what they do here with the 24 Hours of Le Mans, with the hybrids in the LMP1 category, although this is the last year for those cars. We'll go over the quick finishing order before we get into what we want to talk about with that race. Toyota with the number 8 picked up the win in LMP1. United Autosports, their number 22 car wins LMP2. That car is owned by F1 team owner Zach Brown, who owns McLaren. GT Pro and GT Am were a sweep by Aston Martin, with the factory team winning with the number 97 and TF Sport winning with the number 90 Aston Martins. Michael, you and I watched a lot of this race, and it was a weird feeling at the start of the race to see all the cars diving into turn 1 and nobody was there. But it was just another reminder of the reality of this year.
Honestly, it's just no diving into turn 1. Everybody was just kind of in the turn 1, and it's honestly due to the COVID red flag. And I'm just happy, honestly, that we saw the race.
Same.
Can we get a round of applause for that? The 24 Hours of Le Mans actually happened.
There's our applause
in the middle of a pandemic. In the middle of a pandemic.
And nobody had any issues when it came to Rona, or I know one team pulled out, Ginetta, but that had nothing to do with Rona and everything to do with the fact that the Ginetta program.
By the way, Ginetta's coming back next year.
Are they? I thought they were.
Yeah, they're coming back. I think they're coming for. They made an announcement on Instagram and Facebook, but I think they're coming with an LMP. I think next year the LMP series is going to be called LMPH or something like that.
Le Mans Hypercar, yeah.
Yeah, and they made a car for it. So I think they're going to be back next year.
So there is a Ginetta Hypercar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they said they actually wanted to make that into a road car, actually.
Okay. It's hard to tell with Ginetta because they just do... Their program for this particular car, their LMP1 car, didn't go that great. And they were mostly upset with the World Endurance Championship.
They didn't make it an hour.
Yeah. They were mostly upset with the World Endurance Championship and how things were going. So they were talking about they weren't even making it. But it's nice to see that they are at least looking like they're going to stay around and do something with that. But as we talk about Le Mans and Toyota picking up their third straight win, everybody's complaining about how Toyota has had it easy and nobody is challenging them and their wins don't mean anything. Guys, this is not a Mercedes situation where they just made a car that is better than everybody else. Their two main competitors in in Audi and Porsche were involved in an emissions cheating scandal, and their parent company got fined $1 billion by the United States alone, which made it pretty impossible for those programs to continue. So Toyota got left holding the bag, much like Audi did when Audi did in 2012 when the World Endurance Championship first started. Ironically, that actually forced Toyota to run a full season earlier than they wanted to. Toyota's basically sticking around because they believe in the World Endurance Championship, and they're still going to keep working hard because they want to win. They can't really help that the guys they were competing with had issues that were outside of the track and weren't able to continue with their program. But Peugeot is coming in 2022. Glickenhaus is coming in 2021. So there are new cars coming in. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the LMP category going forward.
Definitely. I have high hopes for this new era of Le Mans racing going on.
And on the other side, the LMP2 category was fun. 24 cars.
Always. It's always fun.
I think LMP2, the racing this year, was the best it's ever been. We had 24 cars show up, and they battled all the way to literally the final minutes when United Autosports had to pit the 22 for fuel, and everybody is sitting there watching where the Jota is on track and watching the 22 in the pit lane, and I didn't think they were going to make it out. I really didn't think they were going to make it out of the pit lane, but they make it out ahead, and they're able to cruise to the victory because the 38 then had to come and pit. So there was dramatics in the final minutes of this race, even though the LMP1 duel or the LMP1 battle had really been decided. And then GT Pro and GTM, Aston Martin has made a really good car, and they were able to iterate on it over the last couple of years. They were able to pick up the win, but
some people say they're getting the Mercedes treatment.
Who, Aston Martin?
Yeah, some people are saying they're pulling a Mercedes, and I was just like, you can't really blame them for doing something good.
I mean, I don't get how we've gotten to this place where the teams that, did the good work are getting chastised for doing their jobs. It's not their fault. Mercedes has a monster right now because they were tuning to fight what we didn't know was a cheated up Ferrari. That's why we have this behemoth on the track in Formula One. Toyota was thinking they were going to be in dogfights with Porsche and Audi for the next couple of years. And then the emissions scandal happened. But they've already
to be honest,
built
those
the car.
fights were really good. Let's not lie.
Those fights were really good. That was really good racing when we had
The
Audi
overtake,
and Porsche.
On 2016, the overtaking Fuji.
Oh, that was
I think that was the number 7 Audi on the Porsche.
That was such a good season. 2016 was such a good season.
Yeah,
For World Endurance
if any of you
Championship.
haven't watched the World Endurance Series, just go look at the 2016 season.
Wasn't that the season where Toyota died just crossing the finish line to start the last lap at Le Mans?
Yes.
Christopher, have you heard about this?
I'm sorry, I blanked out there for a minute.
So, have you heard about the Toyota 2016 fiasco at the 24 Hours of Le Mans? Please say no, I want to tell this story.
Go ahead. You can tell this story.
Tell it. If you want to tell it, tell it.
Okay, so I've got to tell this story and remind our new fans here. So in 2016, I think this was like our second year of the show, when Toyota was it looked like Toyota was finally going to win the race, but their cars had been having issues all day. There was some sort of driveline issue they were having in the race. Well, it looked like one of the Toyotas was going to survive. I don't remember which number it was at this point. I think it was the 7, because the 7 is always snake
it was the 7.
The 7 is snake bitten at this track. So they all of a sudden, coming through the Porsche curves, radio transmission, I have an issue with the car. And everybody's like, no. And as he's comes through the Porsche curves, coming through the final chicanes to start the last lap, because the Porsche is way back. Like, if they can just limp that car around, they're going to win the race. The car comes through the last set of the chicane, not under power. The car is dead. It's missed pit road. It rolls across the finish line and stops. Just starting its final lap and stops. And everyone
one of the most gut-punching moments
everyone in Toyota
seen.
just has to sit there and watch as the Porsche goes by the first time to take the lead and then comes back around the second time to win the race. It is the most heartbreaking finish to a Le Mans 24 Hours ever.
Yeah, I was getting years mixed up, but yes, I know exactly what you're talking about now, and I just pulled up YouTube to watch a clip of it, and yeah, I'm looking at some teams right now, and oh my god, it's heartbreaking. I very vividly remember that finish now.
When we get StreamYard up and running, 'cause I think StreamYard has a way where we can actually show videos to people. I want to show y'all that finish, the audience.
I don't want to watch that again.
I want to watch it again just to remember just how horrible this was, and I want the chat to see it as well, because they have to understand why we talk about that race so much. I also want to show you all the start of the 2002 F1 or 2005 United States Grand Prix, because I also referenced that.
Oh God!
So
many moments I don't want to remember.
Yep. So that is the end of the LMP1 era at Le Mans. We start Hypercar next season. I cannot wait for Le Mans Hypercar. We will talk about that later on this season. As we get ready to wrap up this season of the Extra Mile, we will talk about, what's coming up in 2021. Wanted to get to a piece of news regarding IMSA before we go to break again, and that is that Michael Shank Racing and Wayne Taylor are picking up the Acuras that used to be run by Penske, the 2019 winners of the DPI Drivers' Teams and Manufacturers Championship in DP International. If you remember back earlier this year, Penske and HBD, who runs the Acura racing program, could not come to terms on a new deal. So Penske is out of sports car racing after this year. Wayne Taylor and Michael Shank Racing step into those Acuras that have already shown they're really fast. Michael, what are your expectations for Michael Shank and Wayne Taylor Racing? It's really exciting to have Michael Shank Racing back in the prototype ranks after a long absence as they step back to run the Acura NSX program in GTD.
I'm looking forward to it. I those Acuras that Penske made were definitely fast, so I think they'll be in a good competition. And I haven't seen Wayne Taylor racing all that much, but it is definitely going to be surprising to see them not in a Cadillac.
It really is. And Christopher, I know you've watched a little bit of IMSA racing. We see them getting ready to. We see, Cadillac dominate the early stages of of DPI. Now it's started to swing towards Acura. Do you think that dominance is going to continue into the Le Mans, Daytona, hypercar era that's supposed to be starting, in 2022? Because that car was really strong this year, or last year, and has still been strong this year with Penske.
Yeah, and when I do watch IMSA, it's usually it's Penske. I'm a Blaney guy in NASCAR, and when I'm watching other motorsports, it doesn't matter what it is. V8 supercars. I'm a McLaughlin fan. Any of these U.S. based NASCAR teams, usually I'm going to naturally pull for them when I'm watching other racing series. And that's how it was in IMSA. I'm watching those Penske guys, and that's who I want to succeed. And so I think that with their cars, being sold, I expect those teams to maybe not mirror that success right up front, but I want to say a couple races in, they should be close to where that performance was when Penske's handing them the keys.
The fact that you root for everything Penske now makes the V8 supercars thing relatable, because they've been dominating down there as well. I know you've been enjoying that when you get a chance to watch, because those races... Look, if F1 races are hard to watch here in America, the V8 supercar races are something else, because you have to stay up to like 1:30 in the morning here to watch those races. So more power to those that watch those races live. But it's going to be an interesting next couple of years as we get ready to see who's going to make a Le Mans, Daytona hypercar, who's going to make I don't want to say the big hypercar, but the traditional Le Mans hypercar, and getting to actually see these cars in 2022 race together at Le Mans. Gosh, I wish we could just fast forward to 2022 when it comes to sports cars, because this is going to be awesome, and sports car racing has needed some good news for quite a while. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go through our final segment. In that segment, we're going to talk about Zach Veach and his movement in 2021, and also get you ready for round 2 of the playoffs. We'll be right back here on the Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Vince Wright, the sports governor from the great state of Minnesota, and I want to thank you for listening to Sports Done Right. Make sure you're checking us out on all of our platforms, whether it's Spreaker.com, XSquadAffiliates.com. We're also heard on the Stewart Media and Entertainment Network, so keep it tuned here. More great things coming from Sports Done Right.
Lopan, they didn't even want you. Heck, they didn't even want me. But you know what? Right about now, they have no choice. Looking for the real sports talk? Talk that's for us, the people? Look no further. The Wait a Minute Show, a prime time sports comedy cocktail that tucks you in at night. Join me and Lopan Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 2livestewsradio.com and Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the waitaminuteShow.com. Sounds like a plan to me. Ain't that right, Lopan? Indeed.
And we are back here in the Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your feed for all that is sports. Daryl, Michael, and Christopher here with you this evening as we get to start the final segment. And before we start this final segment, I do want to say that our usual third co-host, Caitlin Seam, I talked to her earlier this week, and as you guys know, she took a hiatus to move back to Michigan and is now moving, I believe, to Chicago. With everything that is going on, she's decided to step back from her role as, weekly co-host here on the program. She will be back in a recurring role, but we won't be having Caitlin on a week-to-week basis. And I completely understand, life comes first at the end of the day. And I just want to say to Caitlin, it was a lot of fun having you on here regularly. And if you're listening, it was a lot of fun having you on here regularly. I do want to have you on recurring when you are available. And good luck out in Illinois doing whatever it is that's going on right now. Have fun out there, and we will definitely talk soon. So, with that being said, we will get on to the final segment of our show. Give me 1 second. Excuse me one moment. Sorry, I had to use the old cough button there. We're going to start with IndyCar real quick. Zach Veach has stepped away with immediate effect from Andretti Racing. He was with that team for 4 years and had, and I think everyone here will agree, an underwhelming time at Andretti Motorsports. The team decided they would not have him back for 2021, and they've decided to just cut the partnership here 3 races from the end. That now brings up a question of what's next for Veach and what's next for Andretti. And we'll start with Michael this time. Michael, do you see Zach Veach staying in IndyCar, and who do you think will get the seat in Andretti going forward?
I think he'll stay if he does well. Mm-hmm. Because motorsports is honestly, it's a talent-based thing. And if you don't perform well, then, you're going to get cut off eventually. Mm-hmm. So it's honestly, if he can perform, he stays. If he doesn't, then he has to go. But honestly, I'm not sure who's going to take that seat at Andretti, honestly.
Christopher,
I'm going to leave that speculation to you guys.
Christopher, what do you think? Because we do have James Hinchcliffe just sitting out there now doing TV for some reason. Do you think he gets that seat in 2021?
I will bet my next paycheck on it. I think that's his seat. I've obviously speculation runs rampant on Twitter, and I think it's just the natural direction that they're going to go is Hinchcliffe.
I will say it. I will be shocked if it's not Hinchcliffe. I will be shocked if James Hinchcliffe is not in that seat next year. I'm surprised he's off the grid right now. Like, I did not see that coming, but he's done a good job on the TV thing. That is positive. That's in his future, but he definitely wants to be racing, and we will probably see him in 2021 back at his old team in Andretti. So we shall see what happens here in the final 3 races of the season. And I think we all know that Scott Dixon is cruising onto that title. I don't see Dixon getting beat unless he just does not show up in the next 3 races. So, which ironically is going to start where their season or end where their season should have started. But we'll talk about that later as we get ready to wrap up the program. We're going to wrap up with a conversation on round 2 of the NASCAR playoffs. And fellas, this is going to be the wildest round of this NASCAR championship deciding format that we have ever seen. The 3 races are Las Vegas, 1.5-mile track, pretty normal. Talladega, which needs no introduction, and the Roval, which we know that race is still capable of creating a wild card feel, as that is one of the toughest road courses they have to deal with here in the Cup Series. This is a round where, in my opinion, if you do not win Vegas, you are sweating these next 2 races. Because Talladega could be won by somebody that's not even in the playoffs. And in the Charlotte Motor Speedway road course, you're not going to get a chance to practice there. And that track is extremely tough because it's a type of road course they don't really deal with because of how narrow it is and just definitely how tough turn 1 is. You're sweating these next 2 races. What do you guys think? Do you think it's an option of, do you think it's really a thing for this round of Las Vegas or hold your breath for the 12 that are left?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Talladega, that is anybody's game. And then on the other side of that, at the Roval, I look at Chase Elliott as probably the favorite on that one. He's turned into quite the road ace. And, I think that some of those guys lower in the point standings are looking at Vegas, and that's circled for them.
Yeah, that Vegas race is going to be much more aggressive than we've usually seen, due to the fact that nobody's trying to go to Talladega needing a win, and no one's definitely trying to go to the Roval needing a win. And when we get to Dega, that's going to be about 8 wide coming to the finish. The last couple of Dega races have been absolutely fantastic. And I think we're going to get another fantastic Dega finish in a couple of weeks. But when we go to Vegas, that's a race where I'm watching the Busch brothers. That's a race where I'm watching Kevin Harvick, of course. Jimmy Johnson had a few wins here. Maybe he can get a win for the final race of his season, or in the final year of his season, sorry. There's a lot of storylines coming into this race. And, of course, with this round and what we've been doing with Nearest the Win, which Christopher is going to get introduced to, is we're going to pick the 4 drivers we think are going to be out in this round, and if you get them right, you'll get bonus points towards your total. So my 4 that I think are going to be out in this round, and my theme here was who can be consistent enough to get through to the next round, or who's been consistent enough this season for me to think that they're going to get to the round of 8. And the 4 guys at the bottom of my list were Clint Bowyer, who's had a blah season, Eric Almirola, who's been close but no cigar several times when it comes to wins. I think the clock is going to strike 12 on him in this round. Alex Bowman, who in my opinion has fallen off the map since he won at California and since when we came back from the COVID red flag. That is 3. And I also have Kurt Busch, who's had a good season, but in my opinion, not good enough to get him through to the next round. So those are my 4 out in this round. Christopher, who are your 4 out in the round of 12?
So I've got Clint Boyer, like you. I have both Busch brothers. I just don't see this one going Kyle's way, and I think he's got an early exit coming. And then I've got Austin Dillon. I don't think that round 1 performance is going to continue over to round 2.
Wow, so you're saying that the round 2 performance by Dillon was kind of a fluke?
That's my personal opinion. Yeah, I do not see him continuing that. Mm-hmm. Now he's a guy that could come on strong at Talladega, but I don't see him, doing well at Las Vegas, where you're relying on your aero, and then I don't see him doing well on a road course either.
That was he did finish 12th at Bristol, so that did bring an end to that incredible run at the end of round 1. So he may be on a downslide going into round 2. I wanted to pick Kyle Busch, but my thinking was, barring an accident at Talladega, which Kyle usually gets involved in during this time of the season, there are 4 drivers in this round that are worse than him this year, and that's why I kept Kyle in. I think the round of 8 is his ceiling, though. I really do. Michael, who are your 4 out in round number 2?
I'm gonna go with Kurt Busch, Clint Boyer, and Alex Bowman. I honestly agree with you. He really fell off the radar during the COVID red flag. And who else do I see going? I think Eric Almirola too. He's definitely had that close but no cigar season.
The one moment that turned the corner for me with Eric Almirola was, remember back to when we were doing the standings by random draw based on where you were in points, and he got into the top 12, and he just kept pulling pole, and I'm like, eventually he's going to win one of these races, and he never did. Like, he could just never string together the races to actually pick up a win and become, I don't want to say a series championship threat, but a threat to be a spoiler in the playoffs. So that's really kind of soured me on Almirola's chances for the rest of the year. So with that being said, we got one more part of the show before we go, and we get to introduce Christopher to this for the first time. That is Nearest the Win proper. How this works is we'll take the races this weekend. For example, this week it is the Russian Grand Prix and the NASCAR race at Las Vegas. We're going to decide who we think is going to win. If you pick the winner, you get 2 points. If no one picks the winner, those that had the driver that finished the highest get 1 point. You can pick the same driver as another person. However, you cannot pick the same driver twice or 2 weeks in a row. So whoever you pick this week, you cannot pick next week. I will start off with our picks for Las Vegas. I'm going to say that, you know what, I'm going to hedge my bets. I think Kyle Busch gets off the schneid this week. I think he's finally going to come home and take a win at his hometown track in Las Vegas. As far as Formula One, well, I guess if you pick anyone outside Lewis Hamilton, you're just dreaming. So I'm going to go ahead and wait. No, I took Hamilton at Tuscany. Yeah, I took Hamilton at Tuscany, I think. So I'm going to have to take Bottas this week. Actually, Matt, when you listen, let me know which one pick is valid. I'm taking Hamilton if that pick is valid. If not, I will take Bottas. Michael, who do you got?
I'm going to go over Verstappen. I haven't picked him all season.
And who do you got for NASCAR?
Denny Hamlin. I think he gets his championship challenge back on track.
Christopher, who do you have in the Formula One race and the NASCAR race?
Well, like you said, you're crazy if you don't go with Hamilton. So that's an easy one for me. And then for NASCAR, I know I can't pick two, but I do think that it will be one of two for Hendrick. It's either going to be Bowman or Elliott. Bowman did pretty good at the early Vegas, and I'm not being a homer here. I've just had this race circled for quite a while as our best shot in round 2.
All right, so those are our picks for Nearest the Win. Remember, if you want to join us for Nearest the Win, make sure you tweet out your picks with Nearest the Win as with hashtag Nearest the Win. And Joey in the chat actually says he's going with Joey Logano for Vegas. This is Joey. I'm not going to butcher your last name. That's Joe Peter, excuse me, in the chat. I'm not going to butcher your last name because I didn't get a chance to read it over, so I'm not going to do that to you. But those are our picks for this weekend. Hopefully they will go over well. If not, Christopher is going to get introduced really quickly to the Extra Mile Jinx, which we will have to talk about in a couple of weeks. But Christopher, this has been an absolutely awesome first episode with you. Cannot wait to have you back next week. Michael, of course, hope to have you back next week as well. I know you are focusing on a little certificate that you are working on, so good luck to you with that, my friend, and cannot wait to do this next week. But before we leave, remember, keep it locked to all of our iSports Radio social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and also iSportsRadio.com. If you want to hear me yammer on about racing more, you can always catch me on Tuesdays at WBGR Sports for 2Y Tuesday with your host, Daryl Kinsey Jr. That's on the WBGR Sports Facebook page. Check that out. And, of course, if you missed any episode of any iSports Radio show, you can check it out anywhere where podcasts can be heard. Also, give my co-host a follow. You can find them at Michael_Ward25 and at Fiji Sims. I am at DK Junior 12, of course. And also keep it locked to the Extra Mile Twitter page. Going to get that rolling with some more content, including some videos from yours truly. So that being said, for Michael and Christopher, my name is Daryl. This has been the Extra Mile, and we will see you at the next green flag. Good night, everybody.